into to understand what is deep reading, why we are doing deep reading, and how we are doing deep reading. So, and the general question is, how do we read actually as academics, as a researcher, as people who are doing research? Of course, we should read. We have to be updated about everything which happens in our field. But how do we read? I'm not speaking about reading novels or reading poetry. I'm speaking about reading scientific literature, scientific resources, like peer-reviewed books and articles and chapters. And in fact, there are 3 types of reading we are practicing as researchers. And the first type is the type which everybody knows. I call it a scanning reading. Scanning reading. This scanning reading is a way of reading which depends on the task. And if the task is to write a paper to present your research, and you need to write a literature review or something, you need to update yourself with the literature about this topic. And you go to the library or you download from the electronic library 100 papers and chapters about this topic, and you have to get into to write a literature review. So what you do, you scan the paper, you look at the title, you look at the authors, you look at the abstract to get into what is the main idea of the paper, right? You look at the keywords, and sometimes you even look at conclusions and even the discussion. So you are scanning the chapter or the paper, and then you make a decision. Are you going to include these into your literature review or not? Does it relate directly to your research or not? If it does, so you include these to your literature review. If not, you just go to the other. So this is the scanning reading. Do you have an experience of this type of reading? Everybody, I think everybody has an experience in this type of reading, which is quite good type of reading, because we have to be so we have to know about this. So, but sometimes we do a different type of reading, and this different type of reading we do for example, when we are attending a reading group. Here in our community, we have 2 reading groups. One reading group led by John, and another reading group led by myself. And for these reading groups, we are not using scanning reading because the task is different. For these readings, we select 1 or 2 papers to read, and the task is to read this paper or the chapter. And this type of reading we call focused reading. We are focusing on the paper, and we read this paper or the chapter and prepare ourselves for discussion. And then when we have a meeting, a reading group, we ask questions, we share our opinions, we share our different understandings of things about this. And you see how interesting it is. After this reading, when we meet, people read the same text, but they have different interpretation. They have different understandings of the same text, which is, for me, it's an amazing. John, would you agree that it's a typical situation when the same paper is refracted through different lenses and is understood differently? So another story with the focused reading is when we need to get into a new field of research, which is unknown to us. When we are getting into a new field of research, and this is a familiar practice for PhD students, when you get to the new field of research, we try to find some seminal foundational papers or chapters or book about this unknown territory in the unknown field, and we do a focused reading of these seminal papers, because our task is to get into a new field which was unknown for us, but because of our PhD, because of our interest, because of many reasons, might be the task. So we are not doing a scanning reading. It's not enough. So we are trying to read carefully in order to get into the main ideas, to know this new field. What is this field about? What are the main concepts, and what are the main ideas, and what are the main methodological aspects, and so on and so on and so on. So this is what we call the focused reading. Okay. And the third type of reading, which we will practice in a couple of minutes, is a deep reading. Deep reading is different from scanning reading, and it's different from the focused reading. Deep reading is the reading with the task to understand the author, not to ascribe to the author our own understanding, not to interpret what is written, but the task is to understand what really author wants to tell us. In deep reading, we are trying to understand the logic of the author, how the author presents the arguments. Are they consistent? In other way, through deep reading, we are trying to understand what author thinks about things, or how the author thinks about things. Is there any coherence? Is there any consistency in this text? So that's why deep reading is a reading just sentence by sentence, and after reading every sentence, asking questions. Do we understand? Do we really understand what is written? And is our understanding is the same what is written? Are we really understanding the author, or we are misunderstanding the author? That's an interesting practice, and I'm not sure that everybody here has an experience of deep reading. Do you have any experience of deep reading? John has, of course. Judy has. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, okay. So let's try to practice deep reading. And the challenge for today is that we usually do it when we have face-to-face. We usually do it when we sit all together in one room, in a round table, and then we practice this reading, just reading to each other and then discussing. But as we have now online, not face-to-face, our organizers created the order of the readers, because what is important is that everybody will read only one sentence from the text. Okay, so, and the order of the first 5 readers are John, you will be the first, then Tara. Are you here, Tara? Okay. Sharon?
Yeah.
Okay. Zixi?
Yes, here.
Okay, Judy. Okay, so now the text is in front of you. Chapter 2, research method. Do you have any idea what is chapter 2? What is the book? And this is a chapter 2 from the book Vygotsky's Collected Works, Volume 4, History of Development of Higher Mental Functions. Who knows this book? Everybody, almost everybody. Okay, let's start deep reading. So, and the procedure is very simple. The first reader is reading the first sentence, and then this reader, after reading this first sentence, explains his or her understanding. What is really written? What does it mean? Okay. And then the second reader have two choices. The second reader can ask the question to the first reader about the sentence, or the second reader just reads the second sentence and then gives the interpretation. After the first reader is finishing the reading, after the interpretation, then I will ask the audience the question, do you agree with the interpretation or disagree with the interpretation? So, and so that's how it goes. So let's start, and then you will see during the process. Okay, now I'm inviting John as a first reader to read the first sentence and then to explain what, John, you think it means. You're welcome, John. Please switch on your...
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Okay, of course.
So the first sentence is, as Nikolai zooms in studying any new area, it is necessary to begin by seeking and developing a method. So there's two crucial parts to this sentence, or three actually, I think is quite interesting. So the first is that Vygotsky is making the claim that as the title of the book says, the development of high mental functions, or the study of that, is a new area, that it's something that hasn't been done before. And the second claim is actually a really interesting claim, is that whenever we start to investigate a new area, we need a new epistemology. Okay, we need to think about how we inquire into the way that we understand this new area, the method. And not only do we need to seek out a new method, but that method will need to be developed. It will need to be a process of refining and improving and changing. Okay.
Okay, this is John's interpretation. So people, who agrees with John's interpretation?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. So who wants to add something? But please don't use your experience. We are just focusing on this sentence, okay? Yeah. Any commentaries?
Yeah, I put in that if the first sentence was saying any new area, is that a new area for ourselves, or is it a new area in the global wealth of understanding?
Okay, good question. John, what do you think?
Well, my interpretation is that Vygotsky is really saying this is a new area for everyone. It's not just a personal opening up of a new area of knowledge. And in fact, we don't do that when we personally evoke a new area of knowledge. We draw on what we know around us. We go and study it, as Nikolai quite nicely outlined the way we approach new problems. So I think Vygotsky is making a claim about this being for scientific inquiry, being a new area, not just for us personally.
Okay, that was very interesting clarifications. Thank you, Janine. In studying any new area, I mean, in general, right? It is necessary to begin by seeking and developing a method. Why? It is necessary to begin by seeking and developing a method. Why? Vygotsky didn't say it's just necessary of seeking and developing method. Why he says it's necessary to begin by?
Yeah, because it's a process. It's not something that you're definite about. You're exploring. So that's a beginning. You're making a beginning.
Who disagrees with this?
I think you have to begin because it's a new area.
But why then Vygotsky says that by seeking and developing a method? Why didn't he say that by seeking a new method or by developing a new method? Why he said by seeking and developing? Is the seeking and developing the same? Or there are two stages, first seeking and then developing? or is this just a metaphoric? What do you think, John? It's your sentence.
I don't think it's metaphoric. I think Vygotsky isn't particularly poetic. No, I think the seeking actually does go before the developing, and I think there's a clear idea that you not only it doesn't come laid out on a platter. You don't go out and look out, okay, we'll just take this from the way physics is, Galileo developed the idea of understanding mathematical physics, and we just apply it to this. We have to seek out, but then we have to redevelop. It's a continuous, it's a chance to change and to improve. So this won't be a simple process of finding something, then applying it. It will have to be a continuous idea of, but anyway, but actually the necessary there is actually quite interesting as well. Now that you just pointed that out, I suddenly noticed that it's not just that we do this, but we have to do it. There's no choice that we have. But when we need to open up a new area, we've got to develop an epistemology. We've got to develop, a way of understanding the thing.
Yeah. John, would you agree? John, would you agree okay. Who is speaking?
Catherine.
Oh, I just wanted to add a thing to it. I thought maybe when you say seeking and developing, they are simultaneous processes. It's not just one sequential in that sense. I mean, you start exploring, but then, the two go together, I feel.
Mm-hmm. So, John, would you mind if I
well, Catherine's waiting to say something.
Oh, Catherine. Okay, Catherine, please.
Sorry. No. Could I ask a question? Is this part of the Soviet project at this time to start developing all areas of knowledge anew on the basis of Marxism?
No. It's no, not at all. This is a book about the history of development of high psychological, high mental function, and this is a new area. How to study the development of high psychological function, and the whole book is about that.
This is not Vygotsky, then?
No, it is.
This is Vygotsky.
It's Vygotsky.
I think
volume 4.
Actually, your point, Catherine, about the social situation of the development of this particular idea, the historic situation in which Vygotsky finds himself in, I think that's actually quite a revealing point. That it was a time when people thought they were creating the new man, and they did say man, and so it, like the French Revolution and the time of the philosophes, it was a time when there was a real feeling of reinventing the world, and you saw this in other, it was the Silver Age, a recapitulation of that golden age of Pushkin. And people thought of themselves as and you see it in the film. When we see the film and literature of this time, we also see that kind of that energy. That's really a really interesting observation. I think that's quite important.
I don't think that the answer could be no either, because when did he write this?
1931.
Oh, in 1931. So the Stalinist purges are beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I studied Bakhtin, and Bakhtin was arrested in 1929. Oh no, a Dostoevsky book came out. But the Bakhtin Circle, for a time anyway, were trying to, Voloshinov trying to create a linguistics on the basis of Marxist, materialism. So I just thought he would have at least, had that kind of directive coming at him as well. So I just, wondered, is that part of the new? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. So for your reflections. But I'm coming back to the text because it's still deep reading of this. Nushin, you have a question or comment, please?
Yes, Nikolai. My question is to clarify the word method for myself, because method and methodology sometimes used interchangeably. So I'm wondering, does Vygotsky mean methods of data collection or methodology like?
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's a very good thinking. The word method. Can we have any idea from this sentence? Do we have an answer here? I hope no. Okay, let's keep your question for the future. Maybe in the future we will have an answer, but this particular sentence we are reading does not give any answer, but generates the question. Very good, Nushin, good thinking. So anybody wants to say anything in relation to this first sentence? So, John, would you mind if I paraphrase it like, if you want to study a new area of research, you should begin by seeking and developing a method which is appropriate to study this new area. Would it be correct interpretation?
I think the claim is actually much stronger than that. I think the word necessary,
Okay.
which I've been fixating on, actually
You
says
should.
that actually the way that it's not just that you should, but the only way of really studying a new area is through first seeking and developing a method.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think the claim, at least in that sentence, is much stronger than should. It is the necessity of it. I think says
Okay.
something quite powerful, actually.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's a very strong claim, right? From the very beginning. So, but look, what happens if you do a scanning reading? You can just read it and go to the point. But the point is actually here. Yeah, the point is here. Okay. So this is a difference between scanning reading and deep reading. Okay. Thank you, John, for your first sentence. I hope you enjoyed your reading practice. And the second reader in the line is, who is? Tara?
Tara, yes, okay.
Tara, please. The second sentence is yours.
Yes, in the form of a general position, we might say that every basically new approach to scientific problems leads inevitably to new methods and ways of research.
Okay, what is your interpretation of this sentence?
Yeah. This is in the form of a general position. That means generally, that's what he's saying. We might say that every basically new approach to scientific problem leads inevitably to new methods and new ways. So it's actually continuation of the idea. He says it's necessary to begin, and then he says it's inevitable. So I think the stress here is, like John said, that it's very strong, that it's stronger than what should, that it's inevitable. That's what is being stressed in the sentence for new methods. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tara. And is there anybody who disagrees with this interpretation or make a commentary on that?
It says basically new approach to scientific problems leads to new method. It feels like when we want to seek and develop a new method, we need to start with the new approach. And yeah, but I don't know, what does this new approach mean?
But Vygotsky says a new approach leads to new methods, right?
Yeah.
So not the methods which leads to new approach, but a new approach leads to new methods.
Yeah.
And my question is, look at sentence 1. In studying any new area, that's clear. But in second sentence, he says, every basically new approach. Is it the same? Studying new area and basically new approach, is it the same?
Not necessarily.
Okay, Judy, please. What necessarily?
Well, in the second one, every basically new approach to scientific problems. So it could be that problems been there, the area's there, but this is another way of looking at it, another, an approach. So it's sort of suggesting that the area may be there. And that's what makes me wonder about the idea of the that Catherine raised about in this time, at this time in history, we're looking at things in new ways, maybe. But the other thing I'm interested in is new methods and ways of research. So it's suggesting that ways of research and methods, are they the same thing or slightly different? Question.
What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, are they the same, new methods and ways of research? Why Vygotsky separates them, saying new methods and ways of research? Why
Well,
he
the
didn't
ways
say
of
just
research seems broader. That's more methodological, maybe. And that's before I was thinking that methods was more methodology, but when I see it here, it may be methods and broader. Anyway.
okay?
Till you go further, it's hard to know.
No. Okay, no. We are not going further. Nushin, are you still having your question in mind?
Yes.
Methods and methodology. You see, Vygotsky separates methods and ways of research. Okay, is ways of research more related to methodology, or ways of research just well related to the methods of data collection or whatever? What do you think? What do you think?
Yes, I think from this sentence, I guess that ways of research are methods and methods are methodology, maybe. Yeah, because methodology is broader.
Yeah, okay, sorry, what do you mean by methodology? Because in America, for example, methodology is very simple. Methodology is just the methods you are using. Just interview, questionnaire, survey, this is methodology. What do you mean by methodology?
I think methodology for me is like the philosophical view of knowledge. Like it includes ontology, epistemology, and then the methods that we are going to collect data and the analysis. So the whole like it includes methods and the philosophical assumption behind using those methods.
Yeah.
I think that one.
Yeah. Can I jump in just to?
No, of course. This is your sentence, Tara.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that methods is derived from methodology, because methodology is more inclusive of everything that Susanna was saying, and then methods we derive from that methodology. That means it's synchronous with that philosophy and theory and understanding. Yeah, it aligns with it, with a certain methodology. The method.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Tara. It's still very interesting opinion. Yeah. But as I read this, every basic. Okay.
Sorry, I use the code for my methodology chapter from Vygotsky. I think it's saying what's the methodology for Vygotsky. It says methodology is the linchpin through which philosophy guides science. No philosophical system can take possession of psychology directly without the help of methodology.
Yes.
It means without the creation of general science.
Absolutely. Good. Very good. Thank you, Nushin, for this addition. I think it's very important. But let's read again. So in the form of a general position. So what Vygotsky is doing here, in the second sentence, he generalizes the first one, okay? Yeah, you see, the first sentence is very complete, and the second is generalization. Would you agree, Tara?
Yes, that's what I said in the beginning, that it's a general. Yeah.
General. So it's not only related to psychology. It might be taken in a very general. So and then look, every basically new approach to scientific problems leads to new methods. So does it mean that we have to first have a new approach, which then leads to the method, or approach and method go together?
I think it starts with the problem first. The new approach is necessitated by a problem. And then it leads to new methods, approach and methods. Yeah.
So what is an approach if it's not a new method? So what do we mean? I mean, you could think of this as being kind of starting out on a journey, and the new approach would be looking at where you want to go, and then you could say, well, how are we going to travel? The form of transportation is the method. The ways of research would be the routes that you take. You could go, high road, low road, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it lays itself open to some metaphorical things, but I'm having trouble imagining what a new approach would be if it didn't involve method. Can I think of myself approaching a new topic, a new area of scientific research or research without thinking about the method?
I think it could be a different view of a scientific problem, or use a different paradigm of worldview. It's that way that you approach it from a different angle could be. I mean, that's how I think of approach. It's a particular way of looking at something, which could be different.
The lens. Yeah,
the
for
lens,
example.
yeah, you want to say the lens,
yeah. If you look at, for example, can I give a concrete example? If you look at the problem of low achievement among people, culturally diverse students, then one may maybe, you can think that they are cognitively deficient and therefore they are unable to understand. Another would, going by cultural historical method, Vygotsky's approach, then you would look at it differently. You would look at the problem itself differently. And you would say that, it's not any deficiency in the child itself, but it's, many other factors, the interaction of the, many other factors. So therefore, that is the approach. And that approach, if you go by the first approach, then your methods will be different. But if you change the approach here and you look at it from Vygotsky's point of view, from his lens, then your methods will also change. Your methods of, the mediation, the way you teach, or the way you understand the child's problem itself will be different. I think this is my understanding. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Tara. That's very interesting. And thank you, Judy. Well, any questions? I see people who are not participating yet.
Yeah. I still have one question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I still have this kind of this thing, distinction between new methods and ways of research. I'm not very clear about that. I mean, to me, they look like kind of quite similar.
Okay. So you can write the question to the question list, because we have two. One question from Yushin, still a question, right? And one question from Tara. So it's a good point. We can collect the questions, and then probably we will find the answer later, because it's only a second sentence. And look, we spent half an hour.
This is deep reading. And it has to go on.
Only 2 sentences, but you see how many ideas we have discovered. Huh? Would you agree? Okay, any commentaries, any questions, agreements, disagreements about the second question, about the second sentence?
Janine?
I just would like to ask how it fits, because I agree with, I think with Tara's idea of the individual and having a look from the perspective of different cultures. That makes a lot of sense from the classroom. But John was saying that it was a new area. We were looking at a global rather than an individual. So how to marry those two sentences together. So we've gone from global down to a method, and then we're coming up from the individual. If we take the second idea of culture being the new methods.
Okay, very good thinking. Thank you. Katerina?
So I just wanted to ask you about the original Russian, because is method would be method.
Method.
Yeah, method. And then what did he use for ways?
Putti.
Putti. Oh, like roads.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's just because you have made this great new translation, and so it just is in my mind now that so method would be from kind of the Latin or Greek, yeah, and then putti is a kind of native Russian word, yeah.
Well, yeah, might be like ways of research. Putti исследования. Okay, ways of I think ways of research is quite a good translation for putti исследования. That's not a problem here. Yeah, so well, one of the reasons I have selected this deep reading is that this chapter was translated more or less okay. There are no big mistakes with the in translation. It was one of the criteria.
I'm not insinuating that in any way. I was just thinking because to me, approach seems it's coming towards.
Подход is approach is подход.
Okay. Yeah. So just coming from like the English, you know, through the French to the Latin is coming towards.
Yeah.
And then
coming towards.
Yeah, coming towards a scientific problem, and then ways of it. So going back to the kind of denotative form of the sign, and then ways seems to suggest that you could branch off in different ways. And method to me always seems like there's a kind of recipe that you can follow. It's kind of more set, but that's just my understanding. So this is wonderful.
Might be approach, подход is more general, but method is just a prescribed set of actions you should do, because every method has a kind of criteria and a procedural aspect. Well, are there any other people who want to join? Ondine, we didn't hear from you. Are you interested in this practice?
Sure. I think that just off the back of what I think it was Catherine that was just sharing there, that branching off into the new ways, branching off in that aspect of new methods and ways of research rang true to me. But from the start, when we were talking about this sentence, I was thinking about lenses and how when you're looking at pre-existing research, you can see through the lens of that researcher and the approaches they've taken. And that if you want to see, if you've seen their research, but you're interested in other aspects of it, you could add a different lens. It might not be a completely varied lens from theirs. It could be a different layer of lens that adds on to or augments their original lens.
Okay, thank you very much. Good, very good. Sharon, you have a question?
Not so much a question. I was just thinking about picking up on John's analogy of transport, because I'm thinking of a new approach to scientific problems. So I'm thinking of transport cars, and the new approach to the design of cars is electric, and that has required new ways in which to produce the cars, and also in the line of production, different ways in which to create those cars. So it was just, I was just picking up on that, as far as that's the way that I sort of see it, that, you know, you have a particular problem and that problem requires new ways of doing. That was simply it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very interesting metaphor. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. That's amazing metaphor. So, Jessica, you are silent today. What's the reason?
I have two reasons. One is because I'm not a native speaker, and the other one is because, and I'm a little shame about speaking, but the second one is because I was thinking about if maybe, I don't know this text, but if maybe Vygotsky is starting to say that you discover a new area through seeking a new method. So maybe in some point, you don't know that you have a new area of a new scientific problem until you realize that you have to find a new way to understand the problem. So you find a new approach and then you seek for a new methods.
Okay. So Jessica, dear Jessica, so I disagree with your two reasons. First, your English is absolutely amazing, and the majority of the participants are having English as a second language here. So please don't think about that. And second is that your question is amazing. Thank you for contribution.
Thank you.
So please stay with us. Okay. Would you mind if we go to the next sentence? Any objections? No objections. So sentence 3, and our reader number 3 is Sharon.
So the material and method of research are closely related.
What's your understanding of that? What Vygotsky is saying? Why he is saying this?
I'm assuming that the new approach or the scientific problem or the new area is the material. I'm making an assumption there. And the method of research are closely related. And they obviously are, because the fact is you're coming to a new way of doing something. Yeah, so, you know, they're intertwined, connected.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or is the material what you find out? I'm not exactly sure what is meant by the material.
Okay. Any questions, ideas, interpretations?
Is it the theory or the concepts?
Okay. Thank you. Very, very good thinking, Sharon. You see, the sentence is looks very simple, right? Sure. The material and methods of research are closely related. Yeah. Of course, they are related, but if we take into account sentence 1 and sentence 2, sentence 3, it's not as banal anymore. Okay, any ideas? Why Vygotsky is not saying anymore about studying in any new area or new approach? Why he speaks about the material here? What's the difference between studying new area or a new approach? Why he speaks about the material here? Does he want to separate this from sentence 1 and sentence 2? Or this is a continuation of sentence 1 and sentence 2? Where is the logic here? Okay. Any ideas?
I think, Nikolai.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Samran.
that, yes, yeah, after all the generalization and talking about the method and the area, now he's narrowing down to focus on what he wants to talk do research about. Mm-hmm. But as Sharon also said, why he's using the word material. Mm-hmm. And his study and his research is all about psychology, mm-hmm. but using the words material. Is psychology about materials?
Is it the topic?
Or object under study, or process under study, or unit of analysis, or what? What he means by material here? Why he's using the word material?
The topic. Is he talking about the topic of study?
The substance of the study of the topic.
or
problem area.
Or we could think of a Marxist view of material here, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and of course, when we study the stars, we are using telescope. When we are studying the microbes, we are using the microscope. So, is this what he means here?
Oh, the tools you mean?
Uh-huh. It's a
It
kind
could
of
simply be another way of saying the same thing he's been saying in the other two, but more specific.
Okay. Or it might be a kind of the conclusion from the first two sentences. What do you think, Julie? It's just a concluding the first two sentences in this. What do you think? Ah, I see you are getting tired.
No, not really. Getting more into it.
Okay.
On the contrary. Yeah,
Oh.
Now that you suggest, it looks like, he's kind of summing up the first two sentences in the third sentence. It's a possible interpretation.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit more than just that, actually. I think
I don't know.
the material, i.e. what you're looking at, I think that saying that the way that you investigate actually affects the what you can investigate. I think Nikolai's metaphor with scientific investigation with telescope, microscope, the kind of instruments that we can use determine the field of study of what we can actually investigate.
Yeah.
And likewise, the actual field we study determines the instruments we use. So, when we want to study gravity waves, we have to develop instruments of interferometry. So we need to develop particular instruments to study these particular areas. But also, when we develop a new instrument, when we developed the microscope in the early 15th century, we then had a whole new material, a whole area
of material, yes,
of microorganisms, and that world that we knew nothing about beforehand, that then came into focus, and that enabled people like Pasteur to then do their work. So there's kind of I hesitate to use the word dialectical, but there is a relationship between the methods and the material. You can't actually think of one without the other, because the methods you have determine the material that you can do. Material will actually start to tell you about what methods you have to use. So this relationship, I think, is really important, actually, and it goes beyond science where I work, and it's a very clearly established thing. I think it is a more general principle, what Vygotsky is trying to say here.
Yeah. So you will never have a material without method. Every material is the material which is collected using the methods. And using different methods, you have different materials.
So it amounts to tool, in other words, the resources that you have. Yeah. And it can be limiting, the tool can be, they can limit each other too. In a sense,
Yeah. Okay. So we have one more sentence and we have one more reader, and the next reader should be Sharon. Sharon, I read. Huh? Are you this next in the list?
I had
yes, you are. Okay.
So was it me again?
Oh no. Sorry. Zixi is now.
Yeah.
Sorry, there is no list in front of me. Okay. Oh, you have a very long sentence, so just take a deep breath and.
For this reason, research acquires a completely different form and course when it is linked to finding a new method suitable to the new problem. In that case, it differs radically from those forms in which the study simply applies developed and established scientific method to new areas. I think.
Okay. Your understanding, please.
Understanding is, I think for the fourth sentence is a kind of summarize all the points, but also stress some points as well. For example, it uses the word completely different, which is have some emphasis on that. So which means so the research method or the form should be not only different, but and it's not only differentiated, but also but should be a very new kind of form. And also it said it differs radically from those forms in which the study simply applies, develop, and established scientific method. So I think what it means by that is maybe the new method or the new form is not developed or established, or maybe it haven't been used before. So I think he's trying to stressing we should be more innovative to discover the new area.
Okay.
I think can I come in?
Yeah, of course, you should.
Yeah, I thought, he's trying to see the mismatch between old method for a new problem. And he says it's something like driving a round square peg into a round hole. That's why informs which study simply applies developed and established scientific methods to new areas. That there will be it doesn't really fit. He's adding that adding that new point, I think, into what he has stressed already. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe that is a justification for why you really need a new method and a new approach needs a new method. Yeah.
Okay. Jessica, what do you think? Your interpretation?
I don't have anyone yet.
Okay. It's okay. Everything is okay. Janine, where are you?
I am definitely here. I've been writing as well.
Okay.
So, because part of what I'm considering is that the new method, as John was saying, with the new, I think I wrote on the side, being new access, new developments which are required because previously it was not available to look at the material, and therefore it must differ from previous methodologies because they are not as specific as are required for these new areas which previously were unexplored. That is what I'm...
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Now I have one.
Please.
I'm thinking about the use of the word radically because it comes from root. So the root of the researchers are different. One is trying to understand very, very new things, and the other one has another sense, tries to confirm or to apply the method. So it's radically different because they are searching radically different objects.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Okay. So Vygotsky begins this sentence with the point, for this reason, research acquires a completely different form and course when it's linked to finding a new method. My question is about, for this reason, for what reason? What is the reason? For this reason. What reason Vygotsky means?
Because material and method are closely related. That is
and we can say because of this, research acquires a completely different form and course when it's linked to finding a new method suitable for the new problem. The key word here from my point of view is suitable for the new problem. So a method should be suitable because material and method are related, right? And do you see any comparison here? It seems that Vygotsky is comparing two approaches to make a research in a new area. Yeah, and Vygotsky describes differences, radical differences between two approaches. And what are these two approaches? of doing a research. Do you see something here?
One is just using old methods on the new problem, and
Yes,
the other is
and because he says
trying
it's a study which simply applies developed and established scientific methods to new areas. Thank you, Judy. And the second? And the second approach is?
is the new methods to new problems. Or new problems, developing new methods.
What do you think, what Vygotsky really wants to tell us here? Does he
You can't use
support?
old methods to new problems.
Yeah.
You cannot use
the same old method to new problems.
Even though these methods are developed and established, and there is also always a temptation to use these established and developed, well-known methods to new areas. Vygotsky says, well,
doesn't fit.
He doesn't say it's bad. He says that there is a difference, and this new course is different from the forms in which the study simply applies developed and established scientific methods to new areas. So he is not critical. He just he is just showing the difference.
Yeah.
He's not saying that it's very bad to apply developed and established scientific methods to new areas. No, no, no. He is a researcher. He is a scientist. He is not saying this is bad, this is good. He says that in studying a new area, you must, there is no other way other than establish a new method. And this will make your research different from those research who are just simply applying established and developed methods to the new area. Would you agree with this interpretation?
Yes, yes, I think so. You know what, I'm kind of changing my mind. You know, earlier I overread and I imposed my kind of judgment on what Vygotsky said. And deep reading helps us clarify those things and then, you know, stick us to what the author really means. That's the difference between our bringing our interpretation, imposing, and then the point that you made, the purpose of deep reading is to distinguish our own biases and our own interpretations from what the author really means.
Except that in the first sentence he said it is necessary, and I think that idea of necessary sort of makes you think that he thinks one way is better
than the
other way.
Yeah, but he doesn't
even
say this
appropriate and not appropriate.
But he doesn't say this directly. Okay,
but it may be, but they will implied. It might be implied that the difference, it is radically different. It has to be radically different. Otherwise, you know, it might not be suitable.
Okay. Okay. Sharon, please.
So in that, so at the moment we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and in conducting research, and particularly with families, researchers need to pivot, or even with schools now, because we can't even get into schools now. So we need to pivot and think how we might do things differently. You know, we've got new problems now. So what he's saying there can be applied to us now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's valid. I think it's still valid, and it's as if it's written just now. Okay, but it was written about 90 years ago. Okay, so that's why we say that Vygotsky was a genius. This is the kind of evidence. We didn't hear Ondine by now. Ondine, any ideas?
I was thinking again, I can't remember who just spoke, whether it was, wasn't Sharon, it was Judy, I think, talking about linking that to today's situation. But even before that, you know, I come from a qualitative background, so I was thinking about the ways in which you engage with participants in education, and you might think about things like interviews and getting opinions back on certain topics or concepts, whatever it might be. But then when you add a layer of video or sound or action, it can give a different interpretation to the ways in which you're conducting your research and the data that you collect.
Okay. So I see Claudia was here and disappeared. Claudia, are you here? Okay. You want to say something?
Yes, I think that, well, what it looks to me as very interesting is that we have new areas of research, and the suggestion is that we have to look for new methods and approaches to new problems. And that's what I think is what he says what it means when he says they're closely related, the problems and the methods and the way we turn out to do the research.
Oh, thank you very much. So I'm aware of time, and look, we spent an hour of time, 1 hour of time reading just one paragraph. Well, this is what deep reading is about. My task was just to demonstrate to you what deep reading is. So that was my only task. My task was not to improve our understanding of Vygotsky or something like that. So I just wanted you to feel what is deep reading and how interesting deep reading is, and how many things we can take if we do a deep reading. And even though, so we had so many interesting comments, and if we collectively write